While many printers have shifted their focus, Freeport Press has remained committed to the art of print. For companies that need a printing partner for magazines, look no further than Freeport Press. We offer the capabilities a customer would expect from a national printer while offering the level of customer service clients expect from a family-owned business. Freeport Press. We do print, and we do it well.
FreeportPress.com.
Someone looked at me one time in a cab, happened to be on an actual date with this person, and he said, "You're from Georgia and you're smart." And I was just like, "What?" So we wanted to tell the stories that stare down the past with authenticity and be really honest about what's happened in this region. But we also wanted to show the good things and lift up voices that weren't being lifted up and talk about all the things that are happening in this region that are good.
The people behind the Bitter Southerner are many things, but they are not, they will remind you, actually bitter. The tongue is planted quite firmly in the cheek here. But the Bitter Southerner is, for sure, like it says on the website, quote, a beacon for the American South and a bellwether for the nation, unquote. Sure, why not? But what started out as an ambitious e-newsletter has evolved into a project. Read the Bitter Southerner and you realize how ambitious and radical their business and message truly is. This is not just a brand, but a movement, a way to talk about the South and Southern things, but through a lens many of us, through our own biases and ignorance, won't quite see. And the world is listening. Stories from the Bitter Southerner have either won or been nominated for 8 James Beard Awards, and now they are up for a National Magazine Award for General Excellence. I spoke to co-founder Kyle Tibbs Jones about the genesis of the magazine, about what it means, about the community it has found and spawned, and about the future, not just of the brand, but maybe of the South, and where the Bitter Southerner fits into it all. My name is Arjun Basu, and this is The Full Bleed, y'all. Okay, so how did you get here? What were you doing before Bitter Southerner enters the picture?
I was a journalism major. I started in advertising. It's a very circuitous route, but from advertising to film production I ended up in television. So I was in television news for, 10 years. Moved to the coast of Georgia. I was married at the time with my 2 children. There was no television station, no ad agency. So I started working in PR for a resort on the coast of Georgia. That took me to New York and calling on magazines, and I would walk through the halls of Condé Nast and just be like, okay, I need to be here. And I'm so glad that it didn't work out at the time, because the way we have produced this company and the way we've grown the Bitter Southerner is exactly the way my life was supposed to turn out. But I just remember walking those halls and being on the elevator with everyone at Condé Nast thinking.
What time period are we talking here?
That was early 2000s.
That's even after the peak. And it was still seductive.
That's when it fell apart, right?
Yeah. I remember going there when I was in magazine, walking the halls in the 90s or something.
It fell apart. 2008 was a pivotal year.
Okay. You get seduced by the vision of these magazine professionals in New York. You're doing your job as an ad person. And then what happened?
I was on the Georgia coast. Then I moved to New York and worked in PR, luxury travel PR, actually. And then I moved back to Georgia and I was working for a corporate narrative firm, and we were working with big clients like FedEx and Charles Schwab who wanted to be good corporate citizens. And so my life shifted at that moment. I wanted to do work that made people better, not just selling a hotel, a luxury, this or that. I wanted to do important work. And we were doing that at the firm where I met 2 of my co-founders. And we all ended up leaving and had this idea to start something that, it was going to be digital. It was going to be long form narrative where we would tell stories that sort of corrected some of the misperception. We'd all lived in New York and moved back, and we all had stories. Someone looked at me one time in a cab, happened to be on an actual date with this person, and he said, "You're from Georgia and you're smart." And I was just like, what? And so we started this whole enterprise to tell stories, to show the rest of the world that there were plenty of amazing people in the South doing amazing things, creatives, artists, environmentalists. We did 1 story a week digitally for many years before we actually started the print magazine 4 years ago. So we're almost 12 years old, but that's how it started. Actually, Arjun, we wanted to tell the world what was going on in the South, but we also wanted to be really honest about the problems of the South. We wanted to tell the stories that stare down the past with authenticity and be really honest about what's happened in this region. But we also wanted to show the good things and lift up voices that weren't being lifted up and talk about all the things that are happening in this region that are good. And there's a lot. And in fact, there's a lot that's happened for years and years, all the music and the drinks and the food and all the things that come out of this region. Long story short, we were doing these stories, and then 2016 came along. And I think the entire nation woke up to the fact that this is not a regional problem. A lot of these issues are not a regional problem. And over the years, we've grown and grown. The print magazine happened in 2021, and we just recently worked on a media kit. And we were looking at our top markets, and only 3 southern cities are on that list: Atlanta, Dallas, and Nashville. And the rest are Chicago, New York, LA, on and on. Seattle.
Are those readers people who were from the South or just people who love the South or both?
I
The ones
think-
who aren't in the South.
I think it started that way. I think expats all over the world started reading this. They hadn't heard this voice from this region. They hadn't heard this progressive, smart, activist kind of voice in the magazine world from where they're from. But over time, we tell stories that are really just some slightly told through a Southern lens. We've become a national magazine. So some people read us because we're fighting the good fight.
Yeah, it says it on your website. It says in the magazine, you're a beacon from the South, but a bellwether for the nation. And it's interesting to me because it firmly places the South in the larger context of the United States, and that you're a vocal global community working to make the South in America a better place, so that it's not your obsessions. While they may be blessed by the South, they aren't Southern.
That's so beautiful the way you just said that. I need to write that down.
We do have a transcript.
That's exactly right. That's what we hope we're doing. We see it in the reaction of our followers and readers, and we're so thankful for the people who have supported us. We have people that have been here since day one. There's 3 of us, Arjun. There's myself, my partner and co-founder, Dave Whitling, who's also the designer, and he is the absolute reason every single thing is gorgeous and beautiful, and every t-shirt and flag is, and we'll get to that later, a little bit about our e-commerce, but he is the reason we are so gorgeous. And then my other partner, Eric Neesmith, titles are so weird. We all do everything. We all work on editorial. We all work on everything. But Eric is our business. He's the publisher. He makes sure we're making money and staying afloat. And he does a lot more than that. But anyway, it's just the 3 of us plus one fulfillment person who's shipping the things that we sell in our online store. We are a tiny team. And what was your question? Arjun, the world is falling apart. Can you believe we're doing this interview in the middle of just the biggest world crisis ever? I am so distracted. I hope I can stay with you. I'm trying. It's interesting. We have a really different business model from most of our peers. But yet, in the larger context, we are telling stories that really resonate across the country and the world. But over the years, we have hired Southern photographers and Southern writers, and it's all been through a Southern lens.
So the size of the magazine, you brought up the design. It's oversized. It's gorgeous. It is gorgeous. Paper stock. How did you guys land on the dimensions and the feel of the magazine even? It just feels so great.
It's odd. It's big. There are other magazines that are this tall, but the squareness of it is a little bit different. I was in New York last week at the new Airmail newsstand, and they had emailed, and I happened to walk in, and the fella, Lionel, who had emailed me was there. And he goes, "What size is it?" I'm like, "It's this size, but it's a little more square." First of all, we are known for our photography. We work with the best photographers, but also writers and editors in the world. In my humble opinion, I just feel like we are working with the best there are. But the photography in this size is just, you can fall into it. It's just gorgeous. It's so fun to see it that big.
Yeah, speaking to other people who create oversized magazines, the answer was quite simple. It was like, I'm commissioning all this money on photographers. Why would I make it small? These are gorgeous photos.
This is like a billboard. It's so big. Now I love Matt at Kitchen Arts and Letters in New York City, the renowned culinary bookshop. He is one of the best people in the whole wide world, but he's Kyle. That magazine is hard to display. So it does have its drawbacks.
It's not just hard to display. I read a bunch of press, people trying to describe bitter Southerner. You got the Vice of the South, which I didn't really agree with.
Neat.
Kitchen sink New Yorker. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like they really don't know. They get it wrong because, one, they take their description right out of the South, and two, it isn't really like anything else. Your last issue, you had this long piece about kumquats, and then the next story is an appreciation, a very long appreciation of Jimmy Carter, and then you get into cake. I don't think Vice is doing that, and neither is the New Yorker. No one really quite gets you unless they get you.
That's right. That's so true. In the old days, we used to call it a whiplash moment. We'd do a story about Killer Mike, and then the very next week, we'd do a story about azaleas. We do that, and in our magazine, that is the rhythm. It is, and so many people, Arjun, say that if you're not specialized, if you don't have a very specific niche, and I guess our niche is that we are in Athens, Georgia, that we're broadcasting live from Georgia. But our subject matter is broad. We are known for our music stories and food and social justice, and stories about the environment are such a sweet spot for us.
On one hand, you're busting stereotypes, and yet you got the food stuff coming, and you have 6 James Beards and 8. Talk about not busting stereotypes. And then you have the music stuff. And if there's 2 things that people will grant you about the South, it's music and food. What else? You can't deny that part.
That's right. When we started this, this is what I was going to say earlier when I was talking about our tiny team. I still write every Instagram post. I am, along with my partners, editing and coordinating partnerships and collaborations, all the things that all of our peers do, but I'm still writing every Instagram post. It's crazy town. But we have a very specific voice. And in the beginning, what set us apart, I think, for people around the world where they were like, wait, I've heard that. That's how my people talk. That's what I remember from growing up, those phrases or the cadence or whatever. So we're talking about really elevated food, culture, the arts, very important issues around human rights and social justice. But you can hear our accent a little bit in the stories. Does that make sense?
It does. And that goes beyond, obviously, the accent, because I just find the brand is so well articulated everywhere. And you know how I really know? It's the T-shirts in your merch store. We can get to that. I always say that you can tell the strength of a brand or an idea by the quality of the T-shirts. A good brand is going to make a great T-shirt. That's obviously not all you sell in the shop. The books you create, your books are great. They fit so perfectly within the brand, the ecosystem. The brand is very easy to see. And I think it speaks to the sincerity of a brand and the singular focus. Even though it's wide, it is singular in that sense.
It is. We are so passionate about what we're doing that we really could all 3 have better lives. We should travel more and but we work because it feels like a life mission. I've done all those things, and I don't think I even mentioned my whole career path. It was just windy and perfect to get me to this point and to do this for the last 12 years. It was the perfect wind up. But what I'll say is I've never done anything like this that I lived and breathed. But it is my own. We own this company and we are entrepreneurs. And so part of that is that, but most of it is just about the mission of what we do. And a lot of that is on our T-shirts. That's true. When we started this, we'd all worked in journalism and we knew a lot of people. So a lot of people in that first year wrote for us for free. About halfway into the first year, like, this is not sustainable. We're going to have to figure this out. So we created what we back then named the General Store, but our online e-commerce where you could buy T-shirts. And some of them are reflective of our content in the food category. There's a mayo and tomato.
I love that.
Sure.
Yeah.
For the sandwich that we all love. Collards and cornbread or things like that. But mostly we are known for our shirts that have a more protest bent. So Abide No Hatred, Practice Radical Empathy. After Bishop Buds or Buddy, I'm not really sure how to pronounce her name, but made a plea to our current president a few weeks ago. We had a Have Mercy, because that's something Southern people say. We had a Have Mercy t-shirt back in 2018 when we were like, and we sold so many 2 weekends ago. I can't even tell you how many t-shirts we're shipping out that just say Have Mercy. Today, Arjun, we launched one that just says Gulf of Mexico. Because in the past, we've had Appalachia, we've had location T-shirts. Today, we launched Gulf of Mexico. People know where we stand.
Absolutely. You have flags and people are flying them. And I know you guys post them on your website every once in a while. And then the photo books that you publish, the whole publishing program, again, it's so on brand. It's a singular.
So many of our books have started as stories, like Waffle House Vistas, Thank You, Please Come Again, The Crop Cycle, Shane Mitchell's new anthology of food stories. All of those started in the magazine. Publishing and business, it's not easy. We're not doing it through a distributor. We sell wholesale to like shops across the country. We're not doing it the old-fashioned way. We're just selling it on our site and we're distributing it ourselves. But like the Jimmy Carter book, we've been working on that for 3 years. In fact, President Carter wrote the foreword. And President Carter actually wrote our first letter from home in the first issue of the Bitter Southerner magazine, the Michael Stipe issue. And every issue we have something called Letter from Home. And everyone from Ann Patchett to Kiese Lehman to Jimmy Carter have written that letter. And issue 10, which is going to drop at the end of March, Imani Perry is writing it. A lot of those books and the book publishing part of our business have come out of the storytelling we do.
The Kate Medley books, her photos are just great.
Incredible.
And they're the South. And her gas station photos are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I actually found out about her before I knew that you guys were publishing the book.
Really? She published a story about gas station food, I think in 2013, maybe the first year that we existed. Then I had her on my podcast and we talked about it. And I think there's one more step in there and then we did the book. But the New York Times ran 4 full pages in the paper. God bless Kim Severson. That was exciting.
We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jeremy Leslie at Mag Culture. We're proud to support The Full Bleed because we love magazines too. Visit magculture.com and see why print is far from over. It's just getting started. Read the journal for interviews and reviews, listen to our podcasts, visit our shop in London and online, and come to our live events in London and New York. We love magazines. Subscribe to our newsletter for weekly updates, all at magculture.com.
Print is Dead is made possible by the support of the Society of Publication Designers. The SPD powers the future of visual storytelling, setting the standard for editorial excellence and shaping the future of visual culture. For more information, visit spd.org.
Talk about the podcast.
There's not much to talk about these days. I think there's 26 episodes of batch. And because there's 3 of us, it's on pause right now. It's really fun. I love doing it. Have I told you, Arjun, that we completely bootstrapped this, like no outside investment?
You're telling us now?
Yeah, I'm telling you now. So look at our product. I don't think you would know, but the money in the beginning days, we would sell 40 t-shirts and we'd have enough money to buy 40 more. Do you know what I mean? That's how small we started. But the e-commerce that we just talked about a few minutes ago, that completely supports our journalism. So when you buy those t-shirts and you buy those flags, and you do that with us, you are supporting our storytelling. And that's how the magazine happens, all of that. But
at what point, because like you said, you guys started as a website or an e-zine. At what point do you lose your mind and say, this should be in print? Did someone ask you, or was it an evolution, or did you just say, actually, this would be better if it was in print?
We're really cranky. We're called the Bitter Southerner. So we're not cranky. That's very tongue-in-cheek, the name of our company in the magazine. But what I'll say...
Does it have something to do with the fact that there were no Southern bars listed on some...
Mm-hmm. In the beginning, we talked about bars and so many other things, but didn't make national lists when the best bars list would come out. Mm-hmm. And we joked that we got bitter. But we weren't really bitter. We just wanted to tell the truth and talk about where many of those classic cocktails came from, New Orleans.
Yeah, exactly.
In the beginning, people said, you cannot put a 7,000 word story online. Nobody's going to read long form narrative on the internet. And we were like, okay, we're going to try. And so we did. And we were one of the first to really go long like that. And it worked and we loved it. And we published things. Writers would come to us and bring us stories that no one else would publish. And it wasn't just about the length. A lot of it was subject matter. Shane Mitchell, I mentioned her before, who has written so many glorious food stories for us. She's spent many years in the travel world and in food with Travel and Leisure and Savour and everyone. Anyway, but we published those big, long, glorious stories. During the pandemic, we were all making it through during the shutdown and all of that. And when we finally came out of the shutdown, we all met and we all looked at each other. And Dave, who has always wanted this to be a print magazine, looked at us and he was like, let's do a print magazine. And this is when people are saying print is dead. That's the name of your podcast, one of your podcasts. So we did it when you weren't supposed to do it. We did long form online when people said it wouldn't work, and we went to print when people thought it was on its way out. And it's not. That's why we're talking.
Well, that's what we're trying to prove here. And it's not, but it obviously has challenges and it's more expensive. You'd already built up a certain audience with the website, but what was the reception of the first? When did you know that you would make a second one?
Immediately, before we even put the first one online to sell it, because we were just so proud of it. Before we even showed it to one person, we knew that we would keep going. And I will say that the growth of the Bitter Southerner, from book publishing to e-commerce to our magazine, has really exploded in the last 4 years since we started the print magazine. In the old days, pre-print magazine, we would launch a story a week. And then we changed our model to launching a magazine 2 times a year for 3 years, and now we're 3 times a year. But we'd launch a magazine and then roll out that content from the magazine every week online. So you buy the magazine first, and then we'd roll out the content over the weeks and save the cover story for a little bit later in that, so people would buy the magazine. But the growth of our company since we launched the print magazine has skyrocketed.
That makes sense. You have filled out your offer in many ways, and the magazine's so beautiful that I'm sure it just sits on people's tables and advertises itself.
It does. People are, Arjun, I know that we're talking about ecosystem, but the single most important part of our ecosystem isn't one of the properties, isn't publishing, isn't the magazine. And I'm going to try not to get teary when I say this to you, but it is our readers. I can't even tell you how they are evangelists. They get the magazine and they display it all over social media. They can't wait. They missed issue number 2 or number 1 and it's sold out, and they'll put up posts saying, would anyone sell issue number 1 to me? They've become collector's items. They wear our t-shirts around the world. People see each other at the Great Wall of China in a Bitter Southerner shirt and high-five each other. The reason people love this magazine, it is beautiful. The storytelling is top-notch. The writers we work with are incredible, but I think the core reason that people gravitate to our magazine is more than just the beauty and the quality. It is about what we stand for.
Yeah, it's the brand.
You don't see that in our industry very much. There's not.
No, it's the brand. And you guys, as a brand consultant, I always tell people that your brand is one if your customers are telling your story for you, which is what a community is. But a lot of communities are really shallow, let's just say. But yours seems to run pretty deep.
It does. That is so rewarding. It's so rewarding. I told you a little bit ago, I used to work in luxury PR. Like, I have done a little bit of everything in communication and journalism. That's why this feels like a calling. It's because right now in the zeitgeist, people are looking to us. What do we do? There's a lot going on in the world that's very scary. And people want to know who to call and what we can do right now. And it's nice to be a leader in that world. We didn't set out to be that, but we are very happy to be there in the middle of it.
That leads me to my political question. Does what you publish change at all? And is your voice louder, or do you adjust because of the current state of things?
Mm-hmm. That's such a great question. When I think about the trajectory of our content and our stories, when I think about that, forever, people would be like, I love that Bitter Southerner. You read a story about okra and you get to the end of it, and that wasn't really about okra. There's a lot more to that story than just a food story. That was cool. And we still tell stories like that. That's our vibe. But when 2016 rolled around and Me Too, and then a pandemic, and then Black Lives Matters and so many uprisings, like little by little, we became more. It wasn't just in a story. It wasn't just something you sensed. We started to say it loudly. And then probably the culmination of that was in 2024, all leading up to the election. We were very vocal, but so much has changed. Think about the way we spoke before Me Too, the way our entire lexicon has changed. And it continues to change and evolve. And what is happening right now in the political world, and which is not even political, in the world, what is happening to all of us right now is so shocking and outrageous that the words we use and the way we tell stories is going to continue to evolve because it's going to have to.
You don't want to be reactive, but you still need to tell your story and maybe even be louder about
Right.
it because there's a lot of noise out there.
There's so much noise. Even doing the t-shirts that I spoke about earlier, the Have Mercy, and then today, Gulf of Mexico. We're not going to be knee-jerk t-shirt company or knee-jerk story magazine. This is just not who we are. We want to be thoughtful about it. We want to live and survive through this insane time. And if we can, I think we're good at it, celebrate beauty and joy at the same time. You have to find it. It's the way anyone who has lived through anything tragic or any kind of over the course of history, when you read people's experiences, you have to look for the beauty and the joy. And we're going to keep that mashup going. We've got to be loud. We have to talk about it, but we also have to.
It goes back to the thing I read earlier, like the beacon of the American South, bellwether nation, but more importantly, connecting an activated and vocal community working to make the South in America a better place.
That's right.
And the South is complicated, of course, as you said, and it just adds that layer. But I think that's where so much good writing comes from the South, because it's not an easy, simple place. And there's so many different voices and different stories and different versions. One event can happen. You get a Rashomon type of thing. The one event happens, and then you have 8 different people telling the story about that one event. What is the future of Bitter Southerner? What else do you do? Does the store get bigger? Do you add another issue, more books, t-shirts?
Yes. We want to triple down on what we're doing. We want to do more of it. We publish 3 issues a year. I don't know that we would go to 4. It would be nice to, but we want to do more film. We are working on a music project right now that it's still in the works. But again, because of our business model, like Arjun, when you open our magazine, there are like 8 ads in there. Our business model is that e-commerce funding our journalism and the work we do. And then part of our e-commerce is from our book publishing arm of our business. So it all works together. We've done this ourselves. But in order to do more, if we want to activate people and make a difference and make the South and our country a better place, we need to reach more people. Last year, I think 7.5 million people engaged with our Instagram. For a magazine our size, that's nice. That's a nice number. In our e-commerce store, we have 100,000 regular customers. But imagine if we doubled, tripled, think about the people we could reach. That's what we think about.
Because the one thing I think that is indisputable about the South is that it's growing. It's one of the fastest growing regions in the States. Politically, that makes the South very interesting, but that's your home base, and you are in a place that is not, it's anything but stagnant. The South is just constantly changing and evolving. Is that something that you can ride?
Yes, because the ride is never in a straight line.
No, it's not.
It doesn't just
Ever.
get better. It gets better and it backs up. It's just crazy because we think you've made so much progress, and then what's happening now happens to women, to marginalized groups, to so many. So much is happening right now, and you think you've made progress. If we just talk about this region, we're in Athens, Georgia, which is a little blue dot in a purple, reddish, kind of red this last time, but has been purple state. Athens is a little music town. From our window, we can see the lead singer from Cracker, David Lowery's walking his dog. We see Michael Stipe at the grocery store. It's good. It's a good place to be. It's a very creative town.
Everyone knows someone from REM or the B-52s or something.
It's a really fun, creative, arty town, college town. And so we're very happy to be here. We're happy to still be in the South. It is the whole point of the Bitter Southerner. It's the way we started. But I think what's good for the South is also really good for our country. And so the fact that our audience is everywhere now, it just feels, of course, we're going to continue to talk about these issues and we're going to tackle it through storytelling and in our products and our books. But it feels we're talking to everyone now. There's a lot of work to be done everywhere. There's a lot of work to be done in the South. We're just going to keep after it. I don't know what more to say. We're going to keep doing what we've been doing. It's how we've made our name.
Yeah, because I think every region faces issues, and then the South is no different. And I just think of the environment, especially as an issue in the South that officially gets short shrift, but the South is getting hit by the changes that are happening in their own unique way. And it's good to know that someone's talking about it. And I know it's not just you guys, but it's other people as well.
Yeah, it's just so hard to watch people vote not in their best interest. I know that's not a Southern thing, but it's so painful, and it's all around us.
We always end this with a question about 3 magazines that you're loving right now. So what are they?
Can only do 3? Oh my goodness.
If you want to do 4, I'll let you go to 4.
That's so sweet of you. Okay. Because we've never done anything the traditional way, we're over here, as we've talked about today. There's some legacy media I will always worship at the altar of all New York Times products, all the magazines. That Jake Silverstein interview you did, that's one I listened to twice. It's just the top of the mountain for all of us here at the Bitter Southerner. We watch in wonder and awe at the amount of work they do, but also how they've got this whole ecosystem of magazines and they don't cannibalize each other. It's so fun to watch, and the creativity and the level of work is amazing. We keep an eye on Will Welch at GQ. It seems like every time we have someone lined up for our cover, GQ has them on their cover like the month before. Okay, I want to tell you 2 more. These are the new ones. One is Mother Tongue. Have you read it?
Yeah, they were on our show last year.
I can't believe I missed that one. I'll go back and listen, but I'm crazy. I'm like obsessed. And then the other is, I'm really excited to see what Sky Parrott does at Dossier, since they brought that back. I have it here. I ordered one. It's very glossy and beautiful. We're in the trenches at the Bitter Southerner working on some hard issues, often in the middle of all of that. And sometimes when I read a magazine, I want to go read about a really nice meal or a gorgeous piece of architecture or design. I'm very drawn to those things. So that's a lot of what I read is in those categories outside of work.
You can't take the luxury brands out of the luxury brand person.
Right? I'm ready for it to make a comeback. Bring it back.
This has been The Full Bleed, a podcast about the future of magazines and the magazines of the future. The Full Bleed is a production of Magazium LLC. This episode was produced by Patrick Mitchell. If you'd like to comment on the show or just, start a conversation, send me an email at hello@magazium.co or visit our website at magazium.co, where you can read transcripts of all of our interviews along with portfolios, archival photos, links, and more. We've got a swag shop too. My name is Arjun Basu. Thanks very much for listening. Welcome to the future.